Loss, the inevitable enemy of acquaintance. I was taught it was a permanent thing. You can't really be taught about the forms of loss that aren't permanent, the types of loss where the person is still in your life but you cannot recognize them, the kind of loss where you cannot see them or perceive them as the same person anymore. It's one of those things in life that you have to experience to recognize, one of those things that no matter how much of it you see in the life of others, you can't assimilate it. It's one of those things that you have to experience for yourself to learn. So without further ado, here are a few of the types of loss that life has taught me. Betrayal. This past year has taught me a lot about restraint with trust and trust issues, not trusting too easily, too fast, too forgivingly, because some people take advantage of that. Some people, close to you or otherwise, out of their own perception of love or out of spite, will learn how to truly hurt you when you trust them. They learned how to truly hurt me, and they did. It can only be described as a sinking feeling in your stomach, followed by every single drop of blood running through your veins boiling. It's an ironic thing because when it happened to me, when I trusted someone deeply and then they betrayed my trust, I developed certain tendencies, a coping mechanism, and then things got dark because that wasn't who I was. I didn't want to have a backup plan for everyone. I didn't want to be the person that held on to something for everyone in their life just to protect themselves. I didn't want to be the person that had their guard up around the people I loved and the people I trusted, and I had to learn that life happens. I used to hate the expression right person, wrong time until it broke my heart. The thing about the right person around the wrong time is you don't know it's the wrong time. You will feel an incredible connection, whether spiritual, emotional, or physical. And forgive me for using a cliche, but it'll sweep you off your feet. At least that's how I felt. In the midst of being absolutely blinded by romance and that connection to the point of infatuation, even no matter how much I lied to myself, I refused to recognize how time has been stripping away from that connection. That person that I loved became a memory, overwhelmed with a feeling that I felt sporadically and cried about because I missed how it felt. That same person was unrecognizable to me as I saw them live their life separate from the one we had together. And it didn't help that we were separated by distance. It's unspoken, it's the smoothest, slowest, and most often than not is the most unintentional form of loss. This has happened to me quite a bit. Life has taught me that the connections that are meant to be kept will be kept, and those that were not meant to be should be released. People live their lives separately when separated by distance, and upholding a relationship when there's distance gets hard sometimes. Yes, if they wanted to, they would. And I won't say that's not true because I've come to learn that it is. I've seen what distance can do to a relationship, whether platonic or otherwise. Things just slowly get phased out. I couldn't think of a better way to transition to this next one. So, terminal diseases. People get sick. You can't prevent it. A person can do absolutely everything in their power to try to prevent getting sick, but sometimes it's not preventable. When you love someone deeply and unconditionally, the thought of losing them doesn't scare you until the reality of a terminal disease does. It's truly painful because you never really lose the person in that moment, but it makes you realize that you eventually could, and that moment when it all hits you, they're already gone. Your life together and your relationship flashes before your eyes, and it's an overwhelming rush of all the things in the relationship that need fixing, and it's sad because you never want to lose that person on bad terms. These relationships need healing. Relationships with certain people can feel good. They can bring you comfort, but despite of how good they might feel momentarily, some of these relationships can be suffocatingly toxic. Those are the kinds of relationships that we like to hold on to for how good they feel, again momentarily, despite of how they are in the grander scheme of things. And even when that pattern is recognized and that toxicity is comprehended, letting go of that relationship is oftentimes one of the hardest forms of loss. It's when it has to be done for both people in the relationship to fully heal outside of that relationship, the kind of healing that has to be done separately. The relationship often runs its course, not because of a lack of honesty with the other person, but a lack of honesty with oneself. There's a certain degree of loss that comes from a lack of honesty with oneself, and it's not out of desire, it's not out of protection, and it's not out of the blue. It's strictly out of hope. Hope that things will get better, get easier, hope that things will somehow get fixed. It's holding out for hope. It's hoping that perceivably the right person at the wrong time will somehow miraculously work, when in reality, you You fail to admit to yourself that it's not the wrong time, but the wrong person. That instead of it being the right person, it was the right scenario, the right desire, the right dream. It is losing that version of that person you have created in your head, that person that was incapable of meeting those expectations you set for them in your head, and giving you everything you dreamed of and seeing them for who they are, rather than who they could have been to you. And finally, loss of oneself. The idea of oneself. Do you find yourself in the world, or are you constantly formulating your sense of identity as you go through life and experience it? Are you who you were when you were 13, when everything you knew was everything you were told to know? Are you that desperate teenager fighting for validation and therefore becoming the person you think people would want you to be, sacrificing every single aspect of your identity that's true to yourself? Are you who you want to become and aspire to be in the future? I'm a strong believer in the concept of creating your own identity and constantly changing, because this idea of waiting to find yourself never really worked for me. Through that though, I've fallen victim to changing myself to fit into different scenarios, relationships, groups, or even environments. Along the line, at some point, I wasn't capable of recognizing myself. I had dissolved into the many versions of myself that were formulated to fit into so many different settings that the person that I was striving to be for myself was lost. I would actually watch back videos of these people I used to be and absolutely cringe, because I now know these people were fragments of who I am today, engulfed in versions of myself I had created to please the people around me. Now, I'm not going to leave you with a sense of hopelessness presented with all of these forms of loss and nothing to really counter it. Though a lot of loss is unavoidable and I feel like you have to lose some to win some and to learn, here's how I managed to deal with these losses throughout this year. You have to be willing to have uncomfortable conversations. I have found a pattern in my habits of conversation, and I have found that most conversations that truly define my relationships by their highs and their lows were based on a foundation of honesty. Though I am not fully confident in saying I do not lie, I can fully confidently say I will always say how I feel openly and honestly, and that is because I truly believe that having a conversation without transparency and honesty will never fully resolve an issue. I have found myself submitting to the difficulty of conversations and having trust in the foundations of my relationships, and though it was hard at times being fully honest, given that some of these conversations happen over the spans of days, weeks, and months even, I have found that these conversations I was having with complete and utter honesty were the conversations that truly defined my relationships with other people and helped me feel secure in them. Being vulnerable enough where I can fully be honest with the person I am talking to and not fear losing them, but if that's what it took, or if that were a result or a consequence of that honesty, then I had to be okay with that, even though sometimes that took time, and I had to learn that that was okay. I was fully dependent on the value added to my relationships by an integral part of all of them, intimacy. I was dependent on the fact that with every hand held, with every warm hug, with every comfortable expression of affection, I added strength, value, security, and comfortability to my relationships. I am aware of my habit of establishing honesty as an important boundary in my relationships and recognizing that physical touch is as important to me as quality time. That expressing love to the people I cared about meant holding them, caring for them, cooking for them, and reaffirming my love for them. Obviously, those are my love languages and everyone has their own. I used to be so afraid of asking for that, but then I realized that the people I attracted and kept in my life craved that as much as I did. And trying to condition people that are not comfortable with that intimacy was not my responsibility, nor were they to keep in my life, and I had to learn that that was a boundary I had to establish. Which brings me to my next point. Boundaries. Maybe it's my trauma, maybe it's my habit of selflessness, but the idea of asking for what I needed to feel comfortable and secure in a relationship always seemed selfish to me. Asking for words of affirmation, for quality time, asking for whatever it was that I needed, within good reason of course, at the time to feel wanted, to feel appreciated, and to feel loved. Establishing boundaries truly has made my relationships much stronger because it ensured that I was always feeling secure in my relationships. That the other person knew how to love me and I knew how to love them. Learning the importance of that came to me with a level of consciousness and a state of existence that is commonly known as self-awareness. being aware of how you feel, of the atmosphere around you, how others are acting and reacting in your environment and your presence and your absence, assimilating the reality around you and processing it honestly with yourself, and therefore understanding how your actions, your words, and your behaviors are affecting the people around you and your relationships with them, but also yourself and your relationship with yourself. Being honest and open with yourself about how you feel and accepting sadness, grief, pain, betrayal, and all emotions that society deems as negative as simply feelings that pass through you, and allowing for them to do so. Allowing yourself not to feel okay all the time. Allowing yourself to recognize how you truly feel and letting it happen. Self-awareness isn't easy though. I've come to realize over the past year that the moments where I felt the most self-aware were when I was honest with myself, accepting loss, and consciously confronting my reality with a degree of vulnerability with myself. And that isn't always easy because most often than not, it's easier to lie to yourself than to lose someone, something, or yourself. So here's the thing. This project was submitted for class, but I truly think that had I wrote this outside of class, this would have been the first project that I was eager to share. Now, before I filmed this, I had this burning desire to share this and read this with everyone in my life, because I feel like the concept of loss is never truly defined to us in a way that's not permanent. I feel like a thing that all of us humans share is loss. I think in the beginning when I said that loss is the enemy of acquaintance, I truly meant it. I strongly believe that there's not one relationship in life where you are not going to lose someone, something, or yourself. The condition of acquaintance, the condition of vulnerability is loss. Now, obviously, there are some people that we keep with us for the rest of our lives, and we obviously cherish them in our hearts. Obviously, when we lose someone we care about, the idea of losing them and the idea of letting go of them is truly a difficult thing, because why lose them when we can hold on to them forever in our hearts and adapt certain elements of their character that we truly cherished and that we truly loved them for within ourselves, and that way we truly never really lose the person. But yes, even though that is true, I still think that the element of loss is still prevalent in most and all of relationships. And so really understanding and breaking down the different forms of loss was truly something I wanted to do with this project, because I know what it's like to be in that pit of helplessness, that pit of truly never wanting to love again because you're fearing loss. That submission to simply not loving. I've fallen victim to that before, where I truly never really wanted to love anyone else because I was scared of losing anyone, and just anyone that I was acquainted to. I literally had to pack my life into 2 50-pound luggage suitcases and move my life across the world to build a better future for myself and to pursue what I really wanted to pursue. And in that, I truly believe that even if I didn't recognize it then, I do recognize it now. I lost a lot, and I think that kind of was also a reason as to why I truly never really felt settled in until very recently. And it was because I lost that sense of home that I had established back home. Thankfully, I was capable of, finding these elements of home and that kind of comfortable sense that those elements brought to me from back home, and people and music and environments, and curating a space for myself that felt true to myself and to my energy, and having long dinners with the people that I love and expressing to them how I love them, and truly bringing elements of my culture, elements that are ways in which I express love in my culture to the people here, and really benefiting from that cultural diversity in my relationships now. But to summarize, truly wanted to share this project more than anything. And out of the 3 feature lengths that I have, flex, I truly wanted to share this project first because I know what it's like to feel that helplessness. I know what it's like to feel hopeless. I know what it's like to be scared to love because you're scared to lose.